Hey everybody, welcome back to the hangar deck. It's been about a week since I did an update. Close to it. I was traveling all week last week. Went to Mexico for work, and it was a good trip. It was a beneficial trip for my company and me. Not my company, the company I work for. And if you have ever wanted to travel, I can tell you the best way to travel is on somebody else's nickel. You know, it's I don't know. I like it. I enjoy it. Okay, so got a little work done on the EA-18 last night, and I got the major sub-assemblies together. So you have one sub-assembly, which is the nose section and cockpit. You have another sub-assembly, which is the upper fuselage, or I like to call this the Cobra hood, if you will. And then you have the lower fuselage, and all of these were joined together last night. So if you recall from the last update, I pointed out I had a little gap here in this wing, and so I took this wing loose and reattached it, and I was much happier with these. So some of the features of this particular model is the lead edge slats and the flaperons in the back, both here that are not on yet and here, are all positionable. So you can position them and glue them on in any position you want. So if you want a dirty pass, for instance, so if you want to put the landing gear up or put the landing gear down and drop all the lead edge slats and the flaps, you can do that. It's the old monogram models, a lot of those had movable flight surfaces and things like that. This is not that particular capability, but it's kind of close. It comes with a connection point right here for the, they don't really call it an elevator, and I can't remember what they call it, but the entire elevator moves and they can move independently, so it's quite articulate. It's got a connection point here that's one of those little rubber grommets or silicone or plastic grommets, and so the elevator section will just push into this grommet, so it will be somewhat movable and independently so. So I've got that done. I've done a little bit of work on the cans, or the combustion, if you will. Got those finished. But I'm going to add some accent to this, put a little burnt jet exhaust stains on that. So these, I mean, they're kind of done, but they're not done. So they're more done than they were. And then you can see the fan blades, actually the after section of the engine in this little can here. A lot of you guys are way better at doing that kind of stuff than I am. So again, if you see something that you want to try in one of my videos, more power to you. If you don't, that's fine too. It's a smorgasbord. So that's what I've gotten done so far. I've got a teeny bit of touch-up work to do. Unfortunately, I touched the front cockpit section right after I'd painted it. It was semi-dry, but it was not dry enough that I did not leave a really nice thumbprint in that. So I'm going to have to reshoot that. And we're going to shoot that with the cockpit mounted, which won't be an issue. When I get ready to shoot that, of course, the aircraft will be sitting down, and I'll be doing that here in a few minutes. But the way I'll do that so that I don't contaminate the rest of the cockpit is I will take this card and I will just slide that right in there like that. And that way I can shoot that fore section of the cockpit again with the semi-gloss black. And it'll be just fine. I did, by the way, add quite a bit of weight to the nose. And there is a lot of room to add weight. So if you're concerned about that, don't be. It is there. I used fishing sinkers, bullet-shaped fishing sinkers. You normally use those with plastic worms. So that's, you know, if you're familiar with that, that's what I used. Hopefully it'll be enough weight. It does not tell you in the guide, you know, how much weight to use. So I just kind of guessed. Feels pretty nose heavy to me. So hopefully we'll be okay. Alrighty, so that is your update for today, at least for right now. I think I'll take a couple of stills of the wing, and I will take a picture of, oh, there is one other thing I wanted to explain. These elevators back here in the back here, sorry. Shouldn't have done that. I'll just bring the model to you instead of bringing you to the model. So these elevators here in the back, these were a little bit tricky. The instructions are not real clear as to where this little strip goes. The way I was looking at it, I thought the strip went somehow on the bottom of the elevator, or the flap, and or the flapperon, whatever you want to call it. And it does not. So what I wound up doing is the major section of this flapperon is a two-piece section that gets glued together off the airplane. Then I glued this flapperon onto the trail edge of the wing using super glue. So I held that in place for a couple minutes. And then I glued this little piece on top of that using normal cement that you see in, or that I use the normal Tamiya cement is what I'm trying to say. And I'm not saying it very well. So let me show you on the instructions what I'm talking about. If you look at these instructions, it is not real clear about where that goes. I don't know. See, it kind of tells you that it goes against this lead edge, but it can also make you think that it goes underneath that main flapperon. But it does not. It goes on top of it, and then it tucks itself in right into this little crook in the fuselage. So I was very proud of myself. It only took me about 40 minutes to figure that out. And anyway, the last thing I want to leave you with, I'm going to plug another YouTube channel. This is a really cool channel. It's fairly new. It is with a Facebook group called Infinite Models. And what makes this Infinite Models Facebook group or YouTube page a little bit unique is there is a gentleman there by the name of Vince that has done yeoman's work on putting together instructional videos on the PBY Catalina and its early days in World War II, when they were based out of Guadalcanal and the Solomon Islands. And I've been able to see a couple of these. They were actually Facebook Live groups. And then he, of course, recorded these and then uploaded them onto YouTube when he created the channel. I'm going to put a link in the comments section. I would very much encourage you guys to go see this, see a couple of those or all of those lectures. I think you would be really, really happy that you did. He did one last night on a fairly new book out. It is an illustrated book on the Japanese aircraft that attacked Pearl Harbor, and it is called Pearl Harbor Attack. And it is it looks to be a really great book. And Vince is going to post a interview, a YouTube podcast that was done with the author. So very cool. Now I'm going to leave you with my own Pearl Harbor story. It is now December 4th, 2021. In 3 more days, on the 7th of December, 2021, we will observe the 80th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. As you know, the world was at war. The Nazis had invaded Poland in 1939, September 1st, and it plunged Europe into what ultimately would become the Second World War. By December of 41, the United States was inching ever closer to entering the conflict, but had no good reason to do so. But that all changed on the morning of 7 December 1941. The Japanese planned an attack and did attack the 7th Fleet anchored at Pearl Harbor, and they did irreparable damage to a couple of the battleships, but severe damage to the other battleships and ships that were in that area. And but they also destroyed a lot of Army aircraft and a lot of Navy aircraft that were on the ground. Fortunately for us, they did not get the carriers or their escorts because they were at sea. So I wanted to tell you this funny story. You know, that's not a real funny subject, but there is a funny story linked to that. And I'm sure there's more than one. There's a gentleman by the name of James Jones. He passed away several years ago, but he was the author of a book that ultimately became a movie called From Here to Eternity. He was also the author of another book that became a movie and then a remake called The Thin Red Line. Many of you may have seen The Thin Red Line with Nick Nolte and Woody Harrelson and many others. But that was actually a remake. There had been a movie made before that. So James Jones was in the United States Army, and he happened to be stationed at Schofield Army Barracks, and he happened to be at Chow the morning of 7 December 1941. So James Jones said that there were 2 things that happened on a Sunday morning in Hawaii. As you might imagine, there were some supplies that were quite short on Hawaii because it was an island and it wasn't really big. And one of those supplies was milk, fresh milk. So he said on Sunday mornings, 2 things happened. One, they got an extra pint of milk. So they got 2 pints of milk. And 2, they got pancakes on Sunday morning. He said you could stay out drinking all night on Saturday night, but more than likely you're going to get up to go to breakfast on Sunday morning because you got not 1, but 2 pints of milk and you got pancakes. So he said we were sitting around eating breakfast in the chow hall, and we started hearing these explosions. Well, the Navy would blast the harbor from time to time to open it up, keep the coral at bay so they could move ships in and out. And they thought that's what was happening. And they thought, wow, the Navy's really up early this morning. And because it was like just right before 8 o'clock. And he said the explosions kept happening. And then he said somebody ran into the chow hall and shouted at the top of his lungs, "The Japanese are attacking Pearl Harbor." Now, they did not say Japanese. But since this goes out, who knows where, I'm not going to say what they said. But he said, the Japanese are attacking Pearl Harbor. So he said, we grabbed our pints of milk because we didn't want to leave them on the table because somebody would steal them, and we ran outside. And he said, we ran outside, and just as we did, a Japanese Type 0 fighter comes flying between the chow hall and the barracks. He said he was so low you could reach out and touch him. And he said as he went by, he said the guy dipped his wing and he looked out his cockpit window, and he said he gave us this great big toothy grin. Said he had these goggles on, he had this white bandana on his helmet with a big red rising sun right in the center. And he said as he went by, he waved at us and then pulled up and went out. And he said, I'm standing there and I'm holding 2 pints of milk and I'm watching this Japanese plane fly by, and we realized that the explosions that we were hearing was the attack on Pearl Harbor. And he said, I'm standing there watching this, and we're all looking at each other, and our mouths are agape. And he said, I suddenly realized what a way to enter a war. A pint of milk in each hand and watching a Japanese plane fly between the buildings. Can you imagine that? Mr. Jones went on to serve in the Pacific. He was wounded. Then he went and served in Europe. And then when he got out of the Army, he became an author. And unfortunately, he passed away way too young in the 1970s. But he was quite an author. He wrote a book, James Jones, World War II. And it's a coffee table book, and intermixed and intermingled within his writings about his experiences in World War II is the artwork from World War II. He told his publisher when he talked about this book, he said, I did not want a single piece of artwork that was not done during World War II. And he said the very first piece of artwork he had put in the book was done in like 1974. And he said the reason why was it was the face of a Japanese pilot, and you could see the front of his aircraft, and you could see Pearl Harbor behind him, and he was pulling up out of a dive, and there were the ships, and there were the explosions. And he said you could see this guy's face, and you could see his goggles, and you could see the white bandana on his helmet with the red rising sun. And he said it reminded me so much of that Japanese pilot I saw that day. So check out Infinite Models. Have a great weekend. Get some work done on your models. Get some work done around the house. Have fun. Get a little relaxation in. But when you leave the hangar deck, please watch out for the prop arcs, mind the rotor blades, and beware the jet blast. Be careful, my friends. We'll see you next time. That was your EA-18 update number 4.